Welding. Where do I even begin with this one? Let's roll that intro, and by the time you tune back in, hopefully I will have come up with something. In this video we're going to touch on the tips that help me get my hands behind the trigger of a MIG welder. But before we jump into that, I need to mention the things that help you restore cars in such a small space. Most people have got a normal garage on the houses. Some people don't have garages on the houses and they do it in a tent, similar to this. The garage that I had on the house wasn't big enough because it was converted into a room prior to me buying the car. I live by the rule, and I call it the KKOTF theory, and that stands for keep the crap off the floors. If you can maximise the floor space, you're going to be getting around the car easier, and you're going to be finding life easier to just weld bits and do what you need to do with the car. If there's crap on the floors, you're jumping over stuff, you lose interest, and it really starts to get on your tits. Why? The second thing that I tend to live on when I'm doing the cars, if it's in the day and it's nice and early, there's plenty of tea. And then when it gets a bit stressful, I move on to the beer. Which can become quite dangerous when you're using a welder and you're 5 pints in and your welds are getting a bit wavy. But it gets you through it, because restoring cars, I'll be totally honest, it is very stressful, but it is also very rewarding at the same time. Yes! This Mini that we're doing at the moment, the Clubman, it's probably been a 2-year long project so far. We've just about finished the floors. And there's been times where I've hated it, I've wanted to put my foot through the car, I've wanted to launch spanners. And there's been times I've walked out of here feeling really overwhelmed and that I've achieved a lot. So it's a string of emotions, it's peaks and troughs, just like my YouTube analytics. Obviously we have a lot of subscribers in January and a lot of views in January, as per the last video. They do tend to sink afterwards. Right, we might as well jump straight into it. I've cut some metal pieces that we're going to basically MIG weld together, and I'm going to show you the different things that I tried just to build up the confidence to be able to pick up the welder and feel like I knew what I was doing. By no means in this video am I saying I'm a professional. I've never said that, and this channel has always been about if he can do it, so can I, but I will learn along the way. So for all you warriors, I'm really sorry to disappoint. The disclaimer has basically just disregarded your hateful comment. One of the main things that I found which gives you the confidence to produce the good welds is you need to be in a good mood. If you're going to come in the garage and you're stressed, forget it, because you'll get wound up when things don't go right. The other thing is start on thick metal, like start on 3mm plate, because this stuff, as you can see, it doesn't bend easily, and that means you're not going to blow holes straight away. So you'll be doing some nice welds, you'll be having the time to practice the movements of the torch without getting wound up that the metal's just disintegrating in front of your eyes. So I practice on 3mm plate to 3mm box section, and I did that by making the spit rotisserie, which is what the car is on. Some of the welds are absolutely diabolical when you look at them, I will show you, and then some of them are really pretty. But always start on thicker metal and then move on to thinner metal. The other thing is welders. Now you can buy cheap welders, you can buy gasless, you can buy gas. In my last video I mentioned gasless isn't the way forward. Now there's two things with that. I wasn't using flux coated welding wire. I believe if you use the correct setup gasless you can get some good results. However, a lot of the old school boys that I've spoke to and asked for advice from, they've all said avoid it, and I've just took their word because they're the people I surround myself with, and I was listening to them. So with enough waffle, let's get these mocked up and let's practice a bit of weld. Right, so we'll begin with a bit of 3mm plate, and you can see the thickness of this plate is rather good. And the first thing we're going to be looking for before we even attempt to weld is making sure the fitment is perfect. And we'll go into fitment and tools and things you can use to make this better further on in this video. So with this, we're simply going to put these two pieces together and create a nice little right angle. Get your little 90-degree right angle magnets, push them together, and what we're basically looking for is a perfect setup before we pull the trigger on the MIG welder. So if I push these together, as you can see, what we essentially have there now is very little gap We're not going to weld this side because if this was a finished product, we'd want to see that perfect right angle. So what we're going to do is weld in there. And the first thing I would do to get rid of the magnets is I'd drop a tack there, and then I'd fill up in between. When welding thick-plated steel, it's very difficult to blow holes and burn through the metal. This is why I say practice on the fatter stuff first and build up your confidence before you continue. There's nothing worse than setting yourself up for a fail, and by jumping straight into welding thin metal, chances are you'll lose your head and give up. So as you can see now, those two pieces are tacked, we've removed the magnets, and the fitment line is perfect all the way down, and it's perfect all on the inside. With metal like this, if it's not going to be on show, you don't have to worry too much about grinding the welds down. Plus, you've got a lot of time to play with. As you can see, there's penetration there, and it's really heated the two pieces together. When we go into the wafer thin stuff, you'll actually see how difficult it is. So we'll weld this up. The only thing that I would say is before you go to weld, I would have a few practice runs with a torch. And what I mean is, like, don't squeeze the trigger, leave the welder off, and I'd practice the movement before you pull the trigger. Now, for something like this, the way I would weld it, I would do something called a figure of 8, and what that means is between the two pieces of metal, I would draw up in a figure of 8 and moving backwards a bit more each time, so effectively dragging further towards the other weld, but in a figure of 8. So I've quickly cleaned this piece of metal up. I will give you some cutaways, but as you can see down the middle, that weld is bonding the two pieces together, and it looks nice and even all through the middle. But I think it's about time we do a strength test to put all you little welding keyboard warriors to shame. As you can see, it's gone absolutely nowhere. It's still perfectly straight, it's rock hard, and that just proves that that's a strong weld. Just before we move on to the thin metal, I thought I'd talk you through the settings that I had on the welder to weld that 3mm plate. Now this is a transformer welder, so there isn't a lot of control over it, but other welders you can control things like the voltage, the frequency, there's all different things you can do, but obviously it means a lot more money. With a transformer welder as this, there isn't much you can control, so you find that there's a happy medium with everything. So for this, I had the wire speed set to 8.5, I had the heat set to 2, and I had it set on minimum, 2 minimum and on. That was it. They're the only controls I've got. Now you find with this welder, for welding thin metal, you go 1 max. 1 max is fine, and the wire speed's about 7, and it seems to just weld thin metal. Anything less, it's crap. Anything more, it's crap. The gas I'm using for this as well is Argo Shield Light, and it's from BOC, and it's a 95% CO2, 5% argon blend. I've got a regulator on there obviously so I can control the gas, but I do get this from BOC Limited. The refills are around £45 and the bottle rental is about £80 a year. So it is expensive, but it is good stuff. So why don't we weld this piece?
Now, with 0.9 steel, the technique changes. Rather than holding the trigger down on the welder, I'm pressing and releasing it just as the glow disappears from the previous weld. This allows the previous weld to cool, but just enough so that the next weld bonds to it.
Now as you could see there, when I was welding, there was no constant trigger action. Every time the glow disappears, I kept pressing the trigger to the welder, and basically what that's doing is bonding the two welds together. As you can see, it follows a very similar pattern. Now the problem is, when you come to do some welding on cars, it's very rare you're going to have a perfect 90-degree corner to weld. You have curves, you have flat pieces together, and it does get difficult. So this is what I did to practice at the start, and then what I'll do is I'll show you now with the tool I've got, a flange tool and some butt weld clamps, of how I've begun to transfer my welds off little practice pieces onto a car, because it is a big jump, but sometimes you have to throw yourself in at the deep end, and you just got to have the mentality of, if I balls it up, I can always replace it, and it's just time and money. Now for the avid watchers of the channel, you've probably noticed in the videos these little blue nifty things. Now these are called butt weld clamps, and the idea is it pulls two pieces of metal together perfectly flat. There's none of this ridge, and they're perfectly flat, and you weld between the gaps. Brilliant bits of kit. Anything like this that you see in this video, there is a link in the description to the purchase place where I got them from. These are perfect. There is a more expensive version of these called Cleco clamps, and the reason I've not got them is because they're expensive and they're basically just a glorified mole grip. The other type of clamps I use, of course, are, I've got the big C clamps and all the individual mole grips. The reason for these is to clamp two pieces of metal on top of each other, or grip parts, and you probably would have seen me using them when I replaced the rear valance on the car. So I think I will demonstrate how these work by putting pieces of metal together, and I'll just show you how they can hold things together in a really handy place. But the things that you generally need to hold metal in place is magnets, mole grips, and butt weld clamps. There is so many different variants out there, but I found that these three combinations have helped me wonders in this tiny little shed. So with these butt weld clamps, the idea is you unscrew them, slide this little piece of metal out, you sit it flat there, you sit the other piece of metal flat, and then you push this through like so, pull them together, and you tighten the top wing nut up. And once that's done, you basically will have the perfect gap to weld through. That's the idea with those. It's perfectly flat. You should get the weld and you should be able to grind it down smooth to both panels. There's also another way that I join two pieces of metal together, and it's by overlapping them. And to do this, you need something called a flange tool. Now I love this tool because I simply like saying the word flange. And it's the only way I can get away with saying it in a sentence without sounding too rude. So as you see with this tool, there's a hole punch and there's a flange on this side. Plug it in, you'll notice as it compresses it does this. Now what I'll do is I'll quickly show you, and I will get a close-up of this. You slide the piece of metal into the top, move it nice and flush, squeeze, and it puts a nice little divot in the metal.
After flanging the second piece of metal, you can see how the two pieces pull together.
Once both pieces are flanged like that, you simply turn the other side and punch one side of the metal. And as you punch it through, you should get 4 nice lovely holes in here. And once you've got the nice lovely holes, as you can see, this piece of metal's here, you slide that over and then you weld through the holes. So, let's do it on the bench. Now obviously, as soon as you've got metal that's going to be exposed and metal that's going to be exposed, what I do is, if there's two pieces of metal touching and you're not going to get to it again, that could become a water trap. So what we do is, to help the weld and just to seal the metal, we squirt it with a bit of weld through primer on that side, and then basically you should be good to go. And while we're on the subject of weld through primer, I use U-POL Weld number 2, and it's copper weld through primer. The reason I use this is because there's a lot of cheap alternatives on the market and they are absolutely shocking, to say the least. In fact, I've got a can here from a brand that is well known, Halfords, and I've actually coloured in where it says weld through, and I've just been using that as primer as a temporary measure because it isn't weld through primer. There is no conductive particles in it, and it just simply doesn't help the welds go through. This is expensive, it's about 20 quid a can, but I'm telling you now, it is the best thing on the market that I've found, certainly anyway. If there is something better, let me know in the comments, and if there's a cheaper alternative that's still good, even better. So let's give it a squirt of this, and then we should be good to go.
What I'm basically doing here is making a small tack weld to each side of the hole and then squeezing the trigger for a longer period of time to ensure I get good penetration and I don't blow through the metal. This also ensures that the hole in the metal is completely filled in with new weld.
So there you go. That's what I call a flange weld, basically. 2 panels sandwiched on top of each other, welded together. If you watch the videos, you will have realised that that's the way I did the floor on the car, the 2 half sections, both flanged in the middle, linking up to the tunnel. Knowing what I know now, for tips on buying panels for cars, if you can afford to buy one massive panel, i.e. a whole floor, a whole wing, or like a whole scuttle, do that. It's so much easier. The only way I can describe it is, If you buy a full floor, you've got 4 edges to weld. If you buy a half floor, you've got 8 edges to weld. If you buy quarter floors, you've got 16 edges to weld. And it's just an absolute ball ache. So the best thing I can say to anyone is, practice on this, buy big panels, take your time, relax, and you should be good to go with welding. Now, a lot of you will be asking about the masks. Auto dimming masks, battery powered, and this is rechargeable. It was quite an expensive one. It's made by Deco. It was 80 quid. And what I will say is, when you're selecting your masks, always try and buy one with the biggest window. The more expensive, I know, but just being able to see when you're welding, especially when it's cold in here and you can see my breath and it's obviously steaming up the front of that. If you've got a little slit, you can't see what you're doing, the welds get frustrating, tools start flying around the garage, and you want to simply give up. Whereas if you have the right gear and you do spend that little bit extra, things can go a long way and look a lot better. Just before we end this video, obviously once you've finished welding and you want to make your rubbish welds look nice and neat, you will need to grind them down. There's more than 2 ways you can do it. I've tried 2 ways and stuck with one. First of all, I tried a 6mm stone disc. It was good for a while. The problem is they are quite heavy, and when they're on the grinder, it has a lot of torque spin on it and it does hurt your wrist. Once the edge had gone off them, they weren't perfect to use, so I moved on to flapped sandpaper discs. Now this is an 80 grit one. They're between £1.50 and £2 each, but they're absolutely brilliant for targeting welds, and they're also perfect for removing any paint off panels, any light protector paint, any dips when you buy new panels. They're absolutely perfect, but you do go through them quite a lot, and once they get a bit old, they look a bit like this, where all the edge has gone and they're just not much use. So I hope this has answered most queries, most things, and I hope it's given people the confidence to just buy a welder and have a go themselves, because, you know, a hobby is a hobby, an interest is an interest, and if you want to do it, you should certainly follow it and never listen to anybody that tells you you can't do something. Because if I'd have done that, I wouldn't be here today documenting my restorations on YouTube and letting you all see my epic fails. So as you can see, what? What the f***? How did that just happen? How did it not fall off? And I'll end this video in the true typical TCR way by saying make sure you do everything in style, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Goodbye.